Hello, lovelies. Welcome back. You are listening to The Tangent, and we are in episode 14 now. We have just a few more episodes until the end of 2024, which is crazy, and I'm trying to not overthink that fact too much. But I did realize that in this podcast, we haven't had so many episodes about medical things. Like, there have been a few, but not like focused ones. So I felt like today I want to go down a bit of a medical road with you and share the story about what happened recently when I got bladder Botox for the first time. So I had no idea that this was a thing. I don't know if you guys know about it, but let's get into it. Buckle up, lovelies. We're taking a ride through some of the quirkiest corners of my life on wheels. I'm Katie, and I have been doing this disabled thing since day one. This is not your typical disability education podcast. Every tangent, every detour is a chance to look behind that curtain of disabled life, unravel the threads of confusion, and discover those, whoa, that actually makes sense moments. Eventually, this is The Tangent, where laughter is the map, curiosity is the compass, and understanding blooms even in the craziest corners. Hit subscribe, grab your headphones, and get ready to be surprised, because the way to understand why is to embrace the wild, hilarious how. So let's do the thing. Okay, so I'm pretty excited to get into this topic with you. I feel like it's a little bit taboo, like talking about medical things and like situations that we have found ourselves in. But I also feel like there's no real reason for it to be taboo, and because nobody speaks about it, we all kind of feel like isolated in our experiences, when actually we're probably having pretty similar ones, and we're just not communicating about those similarities. So I figured that this was a good moment to be a little taboo. So if this is not your vibe at all, I totally get that. But if you are here for the nitty gritty details of disabled medical situations, then this is the episode for you. I think I need to contextualize my medical issue that I'm looking at today. So we are talking all about bladder health, I guess. This is where we are starting the TMI. It's way earlier than the rest of them, but here we are. So here we go. I have had bladder incontinence for my entire life, essentially. So this has been a conversation that I've had for decades, and it's had a really huge impact on my life and how I've experienced different things. And I wanted to kind of look at a smidge of historical solutions that we have had and found, and just share that with you. I think that bladder incompetence, I mean, that's fair as well, but incontinence, to be correct, I feel like that's a pretty expected side issue for cerebral palsy people. At least that's how it is in my experience. And I remember being in school and having the school nurse coming every day. I went to a special needs school for the first 6 years of my school career. So we had a school nurse, and she kind of came and gave people meds every day when you needed them. So she would give me meds for my bladder control. I don't remember what the name of those were, but I do remember that it was the most bitter thing that I had ever tasted up to that point in my life. And I believe that they must have worked to some extent, but at some point we just stopped taking them. And I don't really know why that is. I think it was probably because my tactile aversion stuff started to kick in a little bit more enthusiastically, so it became harder to take meds, and we just kind of looked at the return on investment on that, and it was not great, so we just decided to stop doing that. But when I was around like 9 years old, we discovered incontinence pads. I don't know why it took us this long to find these things, but it super changed my life. But before we made this discovery, we were using like normal pads, but they serve like a very different purpose and they work at different levels. Like period pads don't necessarily work for incontinence, but we were working with the info that we had. So when you know more, you can do more and you can behave differently. For most of my life, I feel like my bladder has been the boss of my body. And the general like management plan that we have had was kind of just responding to whatever my bladder was doing. So I think it was a bit of a crisis management solution option rather than like a preventative solution option. So the solutions that we used, I'm really not saying that these were correct or like the best way to go, but this is what we did. So essentially my plan was, if I drink minimal liquids, I don't need to use the bathroom as much, which works for existing, not like as a human, but as like a person, like with a life. Not so great for my body. Is this making sense? I hope so. I'm just gonna keep going. So I would never really drink anything. We would always make sure that we organized my life in a way where somebody was always around who could change my pads for me at like semi-regular intervals, which worked like most of the time, but like also like randomly, like in winter my bladder decides to be way more active than in summer. I don't know if that's an actual thing or if we've just created that for ourselves. That happens. And so if the whole having somebody around plan doesn't necessarily work, then we just kind of let it flow and fix it later. And most of the people in my life knew and know and understood the situation, and we would be prepared accordingly. So like often, like I would have friends who just had extra towels in their car for just in case they were required. And I always had like multiple pairs of like sets of clothing in my bag with me in case my body decided to rebel. So that was kind of the plan. And then for years, like I think it started when I was in university, where it got quite hectic, and I was living with constant infections, and every few months I was like on a new set of antibiotics, and I was constantly nauseous. So every day I woke up feeling nauseous, and I just kind of got used to that being the way that I felt. This is a lot more context than I was expecting, but we're on a tangent, so we're just gonna keep going and see where we get to. Eventually we're gonna get to the Botox story, but I do feel like this is important information for you to have so that the Botox story makes sense. So I don't know what initiated like a change of heart in me and like a desire for a different strategy, but it arrived, and I wanted more control and independence in my life. And I think that was a huge deal to me to have, like, because it's not about like having perfect bladder function. It's about what I can do when my bladder isn't calling the shots. And it means that I can do more things and be more comfortable in more spaces, and I think it's a whole lot more than just my bladder working the way it's supposed to. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what the medical solution would be, or if there even was one, because my whole life I just believed that this was what happens when you have cerebral palsy. And so I had to change my mindset around that so that I could allow myself to find solutions and to see solutions and to work on changing the strategy around how we managed my bladder needs. So we found a urologist. He's awesome, Larry, and we made a plan. And maybe I will do a whole episode on just that because a whole lot happened. But long story short, in 2017, I got a metrophenol. And so now I have a stoma that is just under my belly button, and I can catheterize that way. I know that there are a lot of more people than I expected who've had this procedure, and it's awesome, but I can talk about that later because I think we need to get onto what is happening now in my life. So what is happening now? For a few months I was having issues with my bladder, spasming pretty much all the time, not really holding anything properly, and also not emptying properly, and just being generally a problematic thing in my body and not doing its job as it was supposed to. So I went for a consult with Larry to see what was going on and to make a plan to find a solution. So I have to combat my anxiety and also some medical trauma things. And for me, hospitals are a lot because I've been there a lot, and I think that a lot of my medical trauma comes from what has happened in hospitals specifically, and that hospital specifically, but it's okay. We work through it and we find ways to not be triggered by things, and we go and we do it, and it's not always gonna be bad. So that's what I have to tell myself as well. So I make lists. I make lists of things that can possibly go wrong. I make lists of what I think is happening so that when I get to Larry for the consultation, I have a plan of action, and it's kind of for efficiency purposes, but also it's a way for me to process my feelings and kind of prioritize where I want to put my energy into and how I need to advocate for myself in a medical space, because I've kind of practiced it in my head 500 times before I get there. I made the list and I had a couple options about why my body was being shitty to me, and I did a pep talk to myself when we arrived at the hospital. It's actually very helpful to do that. I was like, this is gonna be fine. We can be empowered in this space. We are able to communicate what is happening. It is possible for people to be respectful of my knowledge here and my lived experience. I'm not going to be treated like I don't know what I'm talking about. These were a couple things that I was saying to myself, right? I am not going to be invalidated by these medical people. So I go in with my pep talk. I thought that it would be quick because I had my list, right? And I was like, here's what the issue is. Then it wasn't so quick because we needed to do some tests and things. So we did that pee on the stick thing to test if there were infections, because I was convinced to my core that I had bladder stones, because turns out I grow those like a champion, which is a skill that I would prefer not to have. But here we are. The world works in wonderful, mysterious ways, giving us unnecessary skills. So we did that test for infection, and it was clear. There was nothing, and then I needed to go for an ultrasound and an x-ray. So we did an ultrasound to check for stones, and they found none. And then I went for an x-ray to confirm that there were none, because sometimes they're really little or something, or they're hiding. I don't know. I don't understand how you can see anything in ultrasounds. I don't see what they see. This is why I'm not the medical professional. I'm more like Rachel in Friends when she goes for the ultrasound and gets upset because she can't see the little babies on her screen, and then she actually can. She just didn't know that was what she was looking at. Anyway, that took a while longer than I expected, but so we did that. We went back to Larry, yo bro, there aren't any stones, so what are we gonna do now? What is actually happening? Because all of this is essentially good news. My bladder is objectively healthy, but that's not helpful information in solving my current body dilemma. So we made a plan. We decided that this is how we get to the Botox, guys. So we decided that the next step in the plan would be to tackle the bladder spasming with Botox. And I didn't know that was a thing that happened. I've never had Botox before into organs. I've had it before. It's fun to shock people sometimes because they're like, you had Botox? And they just automatically look at my face. Newsflash, people, you can get Botox in other places. Essentially, its job is to paralyze the muscles that you're injecting it into. Then you have options in a disability way, not in a sorting out wrinkles way. So when you get it for the CP things, you get the Botox and then you do therapy and stuff so that you can get your muscles into doing things that they couldn't do because of the spasticity. I hope that was a good explanation. That's how I've understood it for my whole life, so I hope it's accurate. So we decided to do that. And how they do it with the bladder is that I go in and then they do 30 injections into different parts of the bladder so that the bladder can chill out essentially, and then my meds will work. So that was the thinking behind that. So we scheduled the procedure for the next week. Had to do a little bit of hustling with medical aid approval, which took a minute, but they have already approved now a second round of Botox for the bladder if we need it. So I guess we're getting preemptive wins for next time. Yes! Self high fives. But now we get to the hospital, right? And remembering that I have a little bit of my medical trauma situations, and I'm getting admitted, and there's just low-key ableism all over the place. The woman who was admitting me, she asked, remember guys, I'm 30 now and a legal adult, so she was asking, can she sign for this? And I realized that you can look at my hands and be like, I don't know, but I think the assumption is always that it's not possible, which is a bad assumption, because if it's not possible, I can just be like, no, she can sign, but you're still recognizing my autonomy and my capacity to have autonomy in that situation and to make decisions about my own body. She asked if I can sign. We said yes. My mom was with me to do all of this stuff. The woman was shocked that I have the ability to sign. When I did sign, she was super intrigued by that. So I'm gonna let that go a little bit. The ableism still exists in that space, but I'm giving her a little bit of grace, and I'm making some room for ignorance, but only a little bit, because then after we had sorted out all the admin and stuff and we'd signed everything, we had to wait for a bed to be ready. So I go and sit in the waiting area, and I was kind of away from her but still in earshot, and she says to my mom, she asked her, was she in an accident? And my mom responded with my diagnosis and that I was born with cerebral palsy and I've been a wheelchair user forever, and she responded with, ach, shame. I think that was the moment that mom lost her cool a little bit and went down like a whole list of my life accomplishments, which is really awkward sometimes, but I also back it, like in these kinds of places when this is happening. I'm like, you go. Let's do that. I'm living a very happy, good life. Like, there's nothing to feel shameful or like pity about. I exist differently to you, and that shouldn't be a reason to say shame. So that happened, and I just decided to just tune out and like put on my headphones, play some music, and dissociate with Taylor Swift going in my headphones. So we waited a little bit, and I could feel my anxiety just building from being in the space. And we waited, and they called us because the bed was ready, and we started moving with the guy. He was like, "This way, please." And I pretty much know my way around the hospital by now because I've been there enough. And I'm generally like in the same ward. Often I'm in the same like bed. They should put my like a plug on it or something. Anyway, so I still have my headphones on, but like I put the volume down, so I was semi-aware of what was happening, but like most of it was being blocked out. And I don't need to really be speaking to anybody at this point. And my mom didn't know, or didn't realize that I was purposefully doing an anxiety management plan. So she kind of took off my headphones, and she was like, "You need to hear what's going on around you, like for awareness." And it's kind of the point that I was avoiding the hospital noise and stuff so that I could stay calm. But it's okay. We live and learn. It's all good. I put them back on for a little bit, and then we got to my actual like bed that was allocated, and they ask a million questions. I change into the hideous gown that they give you. Like, I really don't understand these gowns, guys. Like, they have so many people coming and being like, "What can I do for you? Can somebody please just redesign the hideousness that is the gown in hospital?" Because I really, like, it really doesn't make you feel well or, like, feel motivated to heal. I feel way better if I'm, like, in my own pajamas at the hospital. But, like, you can't do that when you're going in for a procedure. So that's just my, like, deep request to any, like, fashion person or something. Please, like, approach those people, because that would change a lot of people's lives. And I think actually a lot of medical outcomes would become more positive because people would become more positive. I think that I find really interesting at this point that I didn't really realize until this moment in the hospital was that not one of the million questions that they asked me was about being disabled or what disability I have. It's actually nowhere in my chart that I'm cerebral palsy and a wheelchair user with like what do I have? A degenerative neuropathy. Like, that's nowhere in my chart. Like, you would only know that if you looked at me and saw my wheelchair like next to the bed. And if I have a blanket on and you can't see my hands, like, there's not a lot of indicators to you that I'm a disabled person. So that's insane to me. Like, obviously my doctors know and stuff, but like there are a lot of like are they subliminal? What are they? Like, the extra people that engage with you in the hospital, like, they don't know anything about that. That should be the first thing in my chart, that I'm like a wheelchair user and can't walk. Surely that's common sense and logical, but that's just, it blows my mind that that's the commonplace. As a disabled person with a disability that like affects literally every aspect of my existence. But let's not put it on a medical form. So anyway, I do that, and I was the first on the roster, and I really love my doctors for this, because every time I go for procedures, they're like, "Kelly, we're gonna try and get you in first." And I super appreciate that, because by then I'm like starving, and it's really like I just want to eat. Like, I don't want to, like, it's not about anxiety and stressing about the procedure. I'm just gonna be so hungry if I'm 7th and only going in at like 5 p.m. So I'm so excited that I get to be first on the roster. So we waited for like an hour-ish, and then I went to theater. So in that time, the anesthetist comes to do like the pep chat and like to test my vitals and stuff. And I think we're getting better at telling people what I need or how to do things, because they don't have my disability on file, right? They don't have any of my disability-related needs anywhere recorded. So we have to be the advocates, and we have to tell everybody what needs to happen relating to my disability things so that it can be a better experience for all of us. So then we told him like some of the drama and trauma around like the needle stuff that I have, but like I don't have a needle phobia. I have tattoos. I'm fine with needles. I have an issue with trusting medical people to do IVs and things, because historically it's not gone well for me. That's where that's rooted in my life. So I told him about it, and he ordered like an Elmer patch, which is a numbing thing that I was really excited about using, because I'm like, beautiful. If I can't feel, then you can figure it out as long as you need to. And that took a while to arrive, so it kind of delayed everything. And I was like, well, that's not really my problem. So it arrived, and they took me to the theater. And everything was fine. Like, literally, there was nothing wrong. Nothing was going on. Everybody knew what they were doing. I had no reason to stress and have anxiety. But I was on edge, and I did cry when a door banged earlier. So there's that. But so my anxiety levels were high, but I had it together. It was building, and as we moved to pre-op, everyone was super nice, but here's the problem: they left me by myself with my brain, and I'm learning that that's not a great thing to do in like potentially anxiety-inducing spaces. And the last time I was in a pre-op situation was super traumatic to me, because I had to give open consent for surgery when I had a twisted bowel. And if you know anything about me, I'm not great with spontaneity. I like to be in control, and I had none of those things in that experience. So I did do a whole podcast episode about this in episode 7. So if you want to hear about that drama, you can go check it out there for the whole story. So anyway, so I'm crying and having like flashbacks about that situation that didn't even happen that long ago, but now I can't communicate anything because I'm crying. And we forgot to tell them that if I'm crying, don't ask me open-ended questions. Like, you have to say yes or no things, and I can nod and stuff. But I'm crying, I haven't communicated that to anyone that was in that room. It also did stress me out because the one of the nurses or something, before I went into the theater, she said, I'm just gonna go check if they have ordered everything that you need. And I feel like that's not a great thing to say near me when I'm like about to go in for a procedure. I need you to be prepared, bro. Like, I prepared. So anyway, that was all fine. Everything was there. I don't know why she even needed to like ask that question. Here's the big issue. So I didn't talk about this traumatic open-ended consent twisted bowel scenario to the anesthetist. So that's a really hard word to say as a CP person. But anyway, so I didn't explain that trauma to him. So he's thinking that I'm having like a reaction to this needle issue. Meanwhile, I'm actually reacting to an entirely different trauma. So I guess maybe the lesson here is that we maybe need to trauma dump a bit broader with everybody involved so that they can manage more effectively. It's probably not the best idea, but like, what's the solution here? I don't know. So anyway, so we told them some disability things and they did listen. We told them like I can't be lying flat when I wake up because then there's anxiety, and it's also like I tend to get nauseous, and if I'm on my back I can't sit up. It's like a whole thing. So they knew that and they were super supportive with that. So when I woke up from the procedure in post-op, I was sitting upright. So that was a positive experience. The nurse was awesome. He was awesome. I was again crying. I think I spent like 3 hours crying just from like anxiety situations. But also, this is my standard reaction to being under anesthetic. I wake up and I cry. So like there's no worries there. That's just normal. And he kept asking me if I had pain and like, am I okay? And I was badly like cold, so he sorted that out, and he was awesome. He was like, you're so brave, and like you need to just, if you just need to cry and get the nightmares out, then that's what we're gonna do. And then we'll get you some food, and that will be beautiful. And the minute he mentioned food, I was like, yes. Thank you, I love you, you're my favorite person here. And he hustled like a chicken mayo for me. There are a lot of things that you can win me over with, but like chicken mayo is pretty high on that list. So I spent a few hours in the ward, cried a little bit, ate a little bit, and threw up a little bit, and then I was discharged and we went home. So like a normal day at the office, I guess. So then we were told that it would be like a week to kind of recover, for the Botox to work and do its job, and to have the meds working. So I was like, cool. It did do its job. The Botox was an effective choice. My bladder is not spasming anymore, and the catheters are flowing as they should be. So we're marking it as a successful mission. And I'm super happy about that because it's more comfortable to be in my body now. We are just struggling a little bit with the holding aspect of like the bladder's job, but we're working on that, and we're gonna make plans for like not leaking, and we're figuring that out. So I guess that all in all, I think it was a positive experience. Ableism aside, right? I think that medically we achieved what we wanted to. We just have a couple extra steps that I was not fully prepared for, but we're working on them and it's gonna be fine. Well, this story was supposed to be about Botox, and it was about Botox. I think it's more about sharing the little nitty gritty details of how I experience a hospital visit, like from start to finish. I know there are gonna be way more of these experiences, and I can share way more of them if that's something that you guys would be keen on listening to. But every time I have a hospital visit, we learn new things and we add them to the list, and we get better at advocating, and I get better at advocating in a space that doesn't feel safe to me most of the time. And I hope that sharing these experiences and stories, I hope it's not triggering to you, but also I hope that it will create a little bit of space on the internet where we can feel seen and validated, and that it's okay to be impacted negatively when you have been treated badly or less than, and for these experiences to impact how we engage in future in similar spaces. We're allowed to be impacted by the experiences that we have. The impact that these things have on us, we can work on it, we can manage it, but we have to acknowledge it. We have to acknowledge it for ourselves. And I believe that it's also really important, if you're comfortable with it, to share your experiences with your trusted people so that they can learn how to best support you in how we manage these experiences. And that's quite a job, but I think we're up for it. And I think that we have learned so many skills and strategies as disabled people to actually manage those things that maybe it's not as hard to share those strategies with people. We just need to give ourselves permission to do that. So, that being said, I'm gonna end the episode there, and I'll see you in the next one.